Ladies and gentlemen, you've prayed, you've fasted, you've believed, yet nothing seems to be moving. Now you're tired, not just physically, but spiritually drained. You ask yourself, Lord, where are you? You've waited so long that hope has started to decay like fruit left too long in the sun. But hear this, the silence you're experiencing isn't abandonment, it's divine tension. It's a sacred space between the promise and the performance, the prophecy and the manifestation. And in this tension lies a dangerous temptation to quit just before the miracle. But that's exactly where the enemy wants you, because you're closer than you think. Today, I will show you 7 clear signs, not guesses, not vague impressions, but divine indicators that your breakthrough is not only near, it's already been dispatched. This message is not entertainment, it's a wake-up call to your spirit. Watch this until the end, because each sign builds a ladder to the moment you've been waiting for, and the final sign, it will shake your faith awake. You've suddenly lost interest in things that once satisfied you. Your job feels hollow. Conversations drained you. The usual routine feels like dry sand in your mouth. This isn't depression. It's divine discontent. God is loosening your roots from this season because he's preparing to transplant you. Your spirit is restless because your spirit senses movement before your mind does. Relationships are ending. Opportunities dry up. What once worked suddenly breaks. It feels like failure. But what if it's favor in disguise? God closes doors not to punish, but to protect. He blocks what distracts to make room for what aligns. When everything you relied on starts to collapse, it's a sign that God is about to replace it with what you were born for. Friends stop calling, support disappears. Even your inner circle feels distant. This isn't rejection, it's refinement. God often isolates before he elevates. Just as Joseph was thrown into a prison before ruling a nation, isolation often precedes inauguration. He's cutting off the noise so you can hear his instruction. You thought you were healed, but suddenly pain you buried years ago rises again. This is not regression, it's preparation. God won't let you enter a new season with an old infection. He's surfacing the residue so he can restore you fully, not partially. The pain is the symptom of upcoming promotion. The warfare in your life has increased. Nightmares, anxiety, strange opposition. It's relentless. The enemy doesn't waste bullets on empty rooms. He's fighting you because you carry something heavy. The closer you get to destiny, the hotter the furnace gets. But take heart. The fire isn't meant to burn you. It's meant to reveal what's indestructible inside of you. You don't get daily downloads anymore. Instead, God speaks once and then goes silent. Why? Because in this season, obedience matters more than explanation. He's not building your understanding, he's building your trust. When God graduates you, he doesn't repeat himself. His silence is a sign of your maturity. See, when it's maturity, you overhear a conversation that answers a prayer. A scripture jumps out. A stranger confirms what you sensed. God speaks through patterns, through people, through providence. When heaven is near, the earth begins to tremble. Sudden shifts, unexpected blessings, divine delays. They're not coincidences. They are codes. God is letting you know your time is now. Even when God seems silent, he is still working behind the scenes. Waiting for God's restoration can feel like the loneliest, most confusing time of your life. You pray, you seek, you fast, and yet heaven seems to remain still. No whisper, no confirmation, no open doors, just stillness. It's in that silence that many begin to wonder, has God forgotten me? But silence is not the same as absence. God's quietness is not his withdrawal. In fact, some of the most transformative works of God happen in silence, like a seed planted in the dark soil, unseen by the human eye, but bursting with life beneath the surface. God's work in your life is often hidden, but never halted. We've been conditioned to believe that action equals activity, that if we can't see movement, nothing is happening. But God doesn't operate on performance-driven timelines. His kingdom doesn't revolve around our emotional clock. His plan is bigger than what we feel and deeper than what we see. When God is silent, he's not punishing you. He's preparing something greater than you can imagine. Just because you don't hear him doesn't mean he's not speaking. And just because you don't see change doesn't mean change isn't underway. In the scriptures, there are seasons where God's voice seems absent. Think of Joseph in prison. Years passed with no rescue, no dream interpretation, no promotion, just silence. But all the while, God was positioning Pharaoh, aligning political structures, and preparing a sudden shift that would take Joseph from the dungeon to the palace in a single day. That's the nature of divine silence. It always precedes divine acceleration. When God seems to be doing nothing, he's often setting up everything. The silence is not the absence of motion. It's the presence of precision. Sometimes God's silence is not meant to destroy your faith, it's meant to develop it. It reveals the true condition of your trust. Do you believe in his presence even when you can't feel it? Do you trust his promise when there's no proof in sight? The silence forces you to lean on what he said, not what you see. It pulls you deeper into intimacy because you're no longer running on spiritual experiences. You're running on relational confidence. You stop chasing the miracle and start trusting the miracle worker. It's in the silence that you discover the power of stillness. You learn to hear him in ways you never noticed before. In the rustle of scripture, in the peace that doesn't make sense, in the confirmations that seem to show up from nowhere. You learn to detect his presence in the mundane, to trust his process in the waiting. And this kind of trust cannot be manufactured by excitement. It is forged in the furnace of quiet. The silence of God is also a test, not to expose your weakness, but to reveal your readiness. Can you walk by faith when every visible sign tells you to quit? Can you keep building when no one applauds you? Can you stay obedient without affirmation? That's where true growth happens, in the unseen, in the uncelebrated, in the silence. It's where warriors are made. It's where kings are formed. It's where mantles are given. If you're tired of the silence, tired of waiting for that breakthrough, tired of feeling forgotten, know this: the silence is not your enemy, it's your evidence. Evidence that God is doing something so sacred, so strategic, that he's chosen to do it away from the spotlight, because the greater the destiny, the deeper the preparation. And deep preparation requires divine silence. Don't misinterpret silence as absence. The potter doesn't speak while shaping the clay. The teacher doesn't talk during the test. God's silence may be the sound of him crafting your next season in total perfection. Keep trusting, keep believing, keep obeying. Your restoration is closer than it seems, and when it comes, it won't be delayed, it will be right on time. What may appear as a delay in your life is often nothing more than divine setup. when your prayers go unanswered, your dreams feel suspended in midair, and your plans seem paralyzed, it's easy to believe something has gone terribly wrong. You question your choices, your calling, your very direction. But what if the delay isn't a denial? What if the pause is a preparation? What if the very moment you feel abandoned is the moment you're actually being aligned? The truth is, God's timing is never random. It is precise, intentional, and always redemptive. When you feel stuck, stalled, or set aside, it's often because God is putting things in divine order behind the curtain of your understanding. You see, God is not obligated to honor your timeline. He honors his own. And that timeline is often wrapped in process. What feels like delay is often his method of divine refinement. It's not that he can't move faster. He can shift your entire life in a single breath, but he chooses to move according to the depth of your destiny. Deep destinies require deeper delays, not because of punishment, but because of preparation. It takes time to align the right people, prepare the right place, mature your heart, and crush the pride that would destroy what's coming. The delay is not wasted time, it's divine strategy. When God sets you up, he often does it through what looks like failure. Doors close that you thought were open. Relationships break that you thought were unshakable. Opportunities vanish that once looked promising. And in the moment, all you see is loss. But heaven sees structure. Heaven sees a realignment. It sees you being disconnected from what can't carry your next assignment. You are being stripped, not because God is cruel, but because he is wise. He knows the weight of the blessing you're asking for, and he's not about to pour it into a vessel that hasn't been fortified. Delay becomes the anvil where your faith is hammered into something strong enough to hold the future. If everything happened when you wanted it to, you wouldn't be ready. The blessing would break you. The promotion would puff you up. The platform would destroy your perspective. But when you've been processed, when you've been through seasons of silence, surrender, and stretching, you emerge not just wanting the blessing, you're ready to steward it. You've lost the entitlement, burned the pride, and gained the character needed to carry something eternal. That's what the delay does. It strips the flesh and fills the spirit. It detaches you from outcomes and anchors you to God's heart. And while you feel like nothing's happening, everything is happening. In realms you cannot see, angels are moving, hearts are changing, resources are being repositioned. God is moving puzzle pieces into place with such exactness that if he acted a moment too soon, it will collapse the beauty of the design. Timing is not a suggestion in the kingdom, it is a law. And your life is being orchestrated according to that law. Every heartbreak, every closed door, every no, every detour, it all has fingerprints of intention on it. You didn't miss your moment. You're being prepared for the moment that cannot be missed. This is not a waiting room, it's a war room. You're being trained, shaped, and molded for something that doesn't just bless you, it blesses generations. So don't despise the delay. Don't curse the silence. Don't rush the process. Instead, surrender to the setup. Trust that the God who began this good work is not stalling, he is staging. And when it unfolds, it will not be by accident. It will be divine. It will be right. And it will be worth every second of the wait. God doesn't operate on your clock. He is not moved by human deadlines, pressured by calendars, or rushed by impatience. He exists outside of time and yet works within it with flawless precision. When you expect something to happen and it doesn't, the natural instinct is to assume something went wrong, either with your faith, your choices, or with God himself. But the reality is, heaven is not late. It is never late. It simply moves according to divine timing, not emotional urgency. What you call a delay, God calls a development. What you call waiting, he calls working. He is not slow, he is strategic. And what seems like unanswered prayer may be the clearest evidence of his sovereign plan unfolding. We often forget that God measures readiness differently than we do. We think we're ready because we're desperate. We think we're prepared because we're tired of the pain. But God doesn't move based on pain. He moves based on purpose. He waits for the fullness of time, that sacred moment when every detail aligns, when your heart can carry the weight of what's coming without collapsing under it. You might be ready emotionally, but not spiritually. You may be ready for the reward, but not for the responsibility it carries. And so he waits, not to torture you, but to protect you, not to withhold, but to preserve. His love is shown not just in what he gives, but in when he gives it. In the kingdom of God, process always precedes promotion. There is no shortcut to divine manifestation. Look at the lives of those God used greatly. Abraham waited decades for the promised son. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he was called to lead Israel. David was anointed as king, but spent years running from Saul before he ever touched the throne. Jesus himself waited 30 years before beginning his public ministry. Each delay was not a detour, but a design. And every moment of waiting was filled with meaning, though it didn't always feel that way. It's not the speed of arrival that matters in the kingdom, but the depth of transformation along the way. We live in a world obsessed with speed. Faster is better. So when things don't happen quickly, we assume something is broken. But the economy of God doesn't function like the systems of this world. His timetable is built on eternity, not urgency. What feels like slow motion to you is actually sacred movement. Because when God moves, he doesn't just answer your prayer, he answers it in a way that impacts others, redeems the past, blesses the present, and prepares the future. His answers are multi-dimensional. That's why they take time. He's not building events, he's building legacies. And this is where trust must become more than a word. This is where faith becomes your anchor, not your accessory. Can you trust him when nothing is happening? Can you believe he's good when the door is still closed? Can you worship when the wait gets long? Because this is the space where maturity is formed, not in the fulfillment, but in the waiting. It's easy to praise when the breakthrough comes, but it's powerful to praise when the silence lingers. That's where you learn that your faith is not in outcomes, it's in God's nature. Heaven's timing is often invisible until it suddenly becomes undeniable. The moment will come, the door will open, the season will shift, and when it does, you'll realize that nothing was wasted. Not a single tear, not a single prayer, not a single moment of delay. Everything you walked through was leading you here. Everything you thought was a setback was actually a setup. And you look back and say, if it had happened any sooner, I wouldn't have been ready. But now I see why he waited. Breakthroughs are always preceded by resistance. Every time you get close to stepping into something greater, there is a pushback, a tightening, a shaking, a storm. This is not a sign that something is going wrong. It is evidence that something is about to go right. Before a seed breaks through the soil, it must first resist the weight of the earth pressing down on it. Before light pierces the night, the darkness must reach its deepest point. And in the same way, before you enter a season of divine restoration, there is often a surge of resistance designed to discourage, distract, and derail you. But what you must understand is this: the pressure you feel is not punishment. It is proof that heaven has scheduled your breakthrough. The enemy doesn't attack what doesn't threaten him. If your life had no significance, no calling, no power, you wouldn't be facing resistance. But because you carry a promise, because you walk with divine purpose, you have become a target. That tension in your life, the battles in your mind, the weariness in your soul, the sudden opposition in relationships, finances, or health, isn't random. It's coordinated warfare. The closer you get to your appointed moment, the more intense the resistance becomes. Because the enemy sees what's coming even before you do. He senses the shift before it shows up. He hears the rumble of heaven before it breaks through your atmosphere. And his only hope is to make you quit before you see what was promised. Resistance is not just opposition, it's revelation. It reveals the weight of what you're carrying. It exposes the magnitude of the breakthrough that's approaching. If your life feels like it's under siege, it's because you're carrying something that's about to be born. Labor always intensifies right before delivery. The contractions grow stronger. The pain peaks. But those aren't signs of death. They're signals of life. What you're feeling isn't the end, it's the beginning. The warfare is confirmation that you are next in line for manifestation. Now, this resistance also serves another purpose. It sharpens your focus. When things get tight, you begin to prioritize. You start to cut off distractions, tighten your circle, and return to the feet of God in prayer. It pulls you out of comfort and into clarity. It reminds you that you were never meant to do this in your own strength. You stop relying on human strategy and start seeking divine wisdom. You let go of manipulation and embrace consecration. Resistance strips you down to the essentials: faith, obedience, endurance. And in doing so, it prepares you for the place you're going. One of the greatest lies resistance whispers is that you're regressing. That because life feels harder, you must be doing something wrong. But in the spiritual realm, it's often the opposite. Increase invites resistance. Elevation attracts opposition. Because new levels require new strength. God allows the resistance not to crush you, but to condition you. He lets it push you, not to defeat you, but to stretch you. Every trial becomes a training ground. Every setback becomes a classroom. Every obstacle becomes an altar where your character is refined. So if you feel the resistance rising, don't retreat. Don't misread the signs. The enemy always fights hardest when you're closest to the gate of breakthrough. The pressure you feel is the last contraction before birth. The struggle is a signal. The weariness is a warning not to give up, because what's coming is greater than anything that's been lost. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through. This is the season where you must press even when it hurts. Pray even when you're tired. Praise even when there's no visible progress. Because the resistance you feel now is the resistance that leads to release. Heaven is not distant, it's drawing near. And if you can withstand the shaking, you'll soon walk in the shift. Your breakthrough is not just coming, it's already in motion. Don't stop now. When a breakthrough is near, God often begins to reveal subtle yet unmistakable signs in the natural realm. These signs are not random. They are intentional signals designed to awaken your spirit, strengthen your faith, and prepare your heart. The problem is not that God isn't speaking, it's that many people overlook how he speaks. We expect the heavens to part and a booming voice to announce our breakthrough, but in reality, God often speaks through patterns, impressions, interruptions, and divine disruptions. What seems like coincidence is often confirmation. What appears as delay is sometimes direction. When heaven is preparing to release restoration, the natural realm begins to stir with evidence that cannot be ignored if you are paying attention. Suddenly your eyes are drawn to scriptures you've read 1,000 times, but now they leap off the page with new meaning. Words that once felt routine now feel prophetic. Conversations you randomly overhear line up with prayers you've whispered in secret. You begin to notice that certain doors are shutting, not out of failure, but to redirect you. People leave your life without warning, and though it stings, you feel an unexplainable peace. It's as if God is gently clearing the path for something new to enter. These are not just emotional reactions. These are holy indicators. They are signals that the atmosphere around you is shifting. And sometimes God uses restlessness to speak. You start to feel uncomfortable in places that once felt safe. Your routine becomes hollow. You sense a pull towards something deeper, but you can't quite explain it. That internal agitation is not confusion, it's spiritual movement. It is your spirit discerning what your mind has not yet caught up with. God is moving and your soul is responding before your circumstances show the proof. The sensitivity is crucial because breakthroughs often arrive not with a shout, but with a whisper. Those who are spiritually alert will catch it before it even manifests. Another sign is divine alignment. Suddenly, things begin to fall into place in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. The right person calls at the right time. An opportunity opens up without effort. You stumble into the exact resource you needed, or a random delay keeps you from making a wrong move. These moments are not accidental. They are orchestrated by the hand of God. Divine alignment is one of the clearest signs that restoration is near. It means God is connecting the dots, adjusting your path, and lining up what was previously scattered. He's not only preparing the blessing, he's preparing you to walk into it. You may also experience a surge of clarity. What was confusing becomes clear. You suddenly know what to do, what to stop, and where to go. God brings direction, not always through explanation, but through peace. That deep inner knowing that settles your heart even when logic can't support it. That's a sign. Peace is a powerful indicator that God is in the middle of something. It may not make sense to others. It may even feel risky. But when God gives you clarity, it is often accompanied by a peace that surpasses understanding. And when you obey that peace, you step into alignment with divine timing. Even interruptions can be signed. A closed door, a sudden no, an unexpected redirection. These are not signs of God's absence, but of his presence. Sometimes he blocks a path to save you from disaster. Sometimes he reroutes you because what you thought was the destination was only a detour. You must begin to see everything through the lens of divine intention. When breakthrough is near, God doesn't just speak in sermons. He speaks in situation. And when you begin to recognize his voice in the natural events around you, your faith rises, your obedience sharpens, and your expectancy increases. So pay attention. What you call ordinary may be supernatural. What you dismiss as random may be revelation. Look again. Listen deeper. The signs are speaking. Heaven is sending signals. Your breakthrough is not just a future hope. It's a current reality unfolding before your eyes. The key is to perceive it. And when you do, you won't just hope for restoration. You walk boldly into it. You begin to hear God more clearly, but less frequently. This shift in how he communicates is not a sign that he has drawn away from you. Rather, it is evidence that you have grown. Early in your journey, you needed constant reassurance, daily signs, and frequent affirmations just to keep moving forward. You relied on prophetic words, confirmations, and emotional highs to stay the course. But as you mature, God changes the frequency. not because he wants to leave you in confusion, but because he's raising your level of trust. He begins to speak with clarity, but not repetition. He no longer repeats instructions you already know. He gives you a word and waits. He expects you to move, not based on feelings, but on faith. This transition can be disorienting. You wonder, why don't I hear him like I used to? But the real question is, have I obeyed what he already said? God doesn't waste words. When he speaks, it is enough. When he instructs, it is sufficient. He doesn't coddle maturity. He expects it. You are no longer a child in the faith, needing constant reminders. You are growing into a steward, a son or daughter who walks by principle and promise, not by repeated affirmation. His silence isn't absence, it's trust. It's heaven saying, I've spoken. Now let's see if you walk it out. This is the place where obedience becomes sacred. You don't get daily updates, yet you keep building. You don't feel goosebumps during worship, but you keep worshiping. You don't get new prophetic dreams every night, but you keep believing. This is the walk of the mature. And in that maturity, your hearing sharpens. You don't hear more often, but you hear more clearly. When he speaks, it's like thunder in your spirit. One sentence carries weight. One whisper brings alignment. One moment in his presence can adjust your entire posture. This is what it means to hear him clearly, not just understanding his voice, but responding to it without needing it again and again. In this season, God is developing your ability to walk with him in intimacy, not just in conversation. Some of the most powerful seasons of your life will be marked by few words from heaven, but deep alignment with his will. You begin to recognize his voice in the stillness. You see him in scripture, sense him in decisions, feel him guiding you through peace. You no longer need lightning bolts to move. You trust the still small voice, and you honor it even when it's quiet. This is the foundation of unshakable faith, not built on constant sound, but on constant surrender. God often withdraws the frequent words so that your dependence can shift. He doesn't want you depending on signs. He wants you depending on him. Signs can change, feelings can fade, but his